Play.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever in the world you are tuning in from. I'm here with David, who unfortunately is tuning in from the UK. I'm right, yeah? You're back in the UK
Yes,
now.
I am.
Unfortunately, he's tuning in from the UK because unfortunately Liam wasn't able to overcome his second round hurdle, Emilio Nava. David, just talk us through what appeared to be a pretty crazy encounter.
Yeah, I mean, Liam started so well and got up 4-1 serving, and unfortunately just played a careless game at 4-1, and the momentum just switched, and Liam lost a bit of rhythm, and just really the next few games kind of went relatively quickly, and he just couldn't find his range suddenly from playing beautifully. And I think that game, maybe there's a bit of loss of concentration or something, but that hurt him a little bit. And then he settled down and played beautifully again in the second set and won it 6-love. And I felt that Nava lost his rhythm as well, and was in deep trouble. Liam didn't start the third very well. I think it's quite difficult sometimes when the end of a set finishes quite easily and the other player, you're not really getting much rhythm because they're missing a lot. And then suddenly they come out and all firing. But Liam broke back and got on even terms at 2-all. And then there was the pivotal game of the match because he had 4 break points. The first one, Nava missed his first serve and obviously didn't want to play the point and just hit another first serve. And Liam was standing in, pressuring him, and the serve went in, clean ace. And you say, okay, on any given day that could go anywhere, and usually there's a double fault when somebody does that. But okay. The next break point that Liam had, he hit a decent return off a good first serve, and Nava ran round and hit a forehand again as hard as he could, pretty much, and it into out and actually cleaned the line. I mean, it was impossible to do. And again, it was a real just I don't know if I can say it, but shit or bust shot.
Yeah.
He didn't want to play the point. He was so tight. But it came off for him. And then I think at deuce, another second serve, he went again big with another first serve on second serve and hit another ace, and ended up winning the game. And then Liam went round 2-3 down on serve, 40-love up, and out of nowhere hit a double fault. And suddenly I felt him tighten up a little bit, and the momentum just switched there, and he ended up losing his serve that game. And now you're 4-2 down. The guy served really well, 5-2. Liam held 5-3, and the guy served very well. But the tension had left Nava, and the moment was lost when he dropped serve rather than going 3-all. And a little bit of luck, I would say, when Emilio was very, very nervous and went for broke and made effectively all 3 go for broke shots in one game.
There's a couple of things I'd like to pick up on from what you've said. I couldn't watch the match, but I'm watching the score actually quite attentively. So I'm getting a sort of a very unusual perspective, if you like. But I'm looking at the scoreboard, and we always talk about playing the scoreboard a lot, and of course you often are in tennis. And actually, I did worry after that 6-love set. You would normally be, whether a fan or someone with a vested interest, you'd normally think, well, okay, that's cool. The normality has returned, and what should have been Liam's first set has been borne out in the second, and he should carry that into the third. But I thought to myself, hold serve here at the beginning of this
Yeah.
third set, because this could easily just go the other way again. And I know Liam got it back on serve in that third set, but it's a funny feeling in tennis, winning a set 6-love. So many times I've seen players lose matches having won a set 6-love, even sometimes or lost. Sorry, I remember Rafa losing 6-love in the first set against Dominic Thiem. And by the way, Rafa is an interesting one actually, because I actually thought of Rafa during your little explanation there, because even the greats, okay. Last year, I remember Rafa just struggling, just making things far more difficult for him than he should have been against Fornini in the US Open, second or
Yeah.
third round, I think it was. And there was some words from Carlos Moya, which I think sometimes as a player, professional or otherwise, you can forget he's struggling too. You're kind of so busy thinking about your own scenario and how you're struggling to get things done, and sometimes you're too busy worrying about your own travails to think, oh, maybe he's having a few issues too, and he's probably a bit nervous, and that can sometimes make you feel a bit more relaxed. I don't know if any of that rings true, David.
No, very true. I mean, I think 6-love and 6-1 are very dangerous scores because it's not normal. The margin between the two players is actually very close.
Yeah.
So when a set runs away like 6-love, for or against, definitely the person that loses that set 6-love is going to regroup and get the head and really make a big push early in the third or whatever second set to turn it around. And it's sometimes quite hard to stop that sudden, what I spoke about, change in their level. And I think it's always a very dangerous score, which is what you said, and it's totally true, because it's not a realistic score. Liam's not going to beat Nava 6-love in a set very often, and the other way around as well. It would be very, very rare. And so when it happens, it's against the reality of how close the players are, and usually that gets restored. And it's very seldom you'll see a match that goes 6-love 6-1, or whatever, when you talk about two players that are a very similar level.
When Liam was serving to stay in the match as well, I thought this could, this having had so many momentum swings and what felt like a decisive swing for Nava in that third set. I thought, okay, he's held serve. That's a really nervy game, if you like, to hold serve when you're serving to stay in the match. And now the pressure's on Nava, but I think he served out to love, right?
Yeah, I mean, he served bombs. I mean, he's got a very good serve, and I mean, Liam made returns, but they were relatively weak returns of very good serving. And if somebody puts 4 big serves down, it's really, you're not going to break them when they've got a very, very good serve. But I think tension comes and goes with players, and I think Nava had been through all his tension already. By the time he got there, I think he had overcome his wobbles and was quite relaxed when he served it out. I didn't feel any tension. The tension came at 2-all when he was serving, and that's when the first serve was breaking down and Liam was returning well, but credit to him, he thought, I'll just go brave here and see what happens. And on another day, he could easily have missed any one of those 2 serves or that inside-out forehand. But that's tennis, and there's not a lot you can do about it when somebody goes for broke and makes it.
Which is easier, David, to cope with? One like this, where it's obviously full of what ifs and just like, I mean, as I said, winning that second set the way it did, but also having the double break advantage in the first set. this kind of defeat compared to, say, a more comprehensive loss, if you like, in straight sets, 2-1. Which of those two, or are they both equally galling, but in very different ways?
I think this is where it's really important, the player's outlook after the match. So if you lose a routine 4-3 and never get a real look in, in one way it's easier to move on because you never had a look in, but in another way, you also know that you're not playing maybe as well as you'd like to be playing, and you've got some work to do for the next tournament. So I think that there's when there's a question mark over your form, that is pretty difficult, and a routine loss can knock a player's confidence quite a lot because they don't feel like they're that they're really in a place where they've got to find some momentum somewhere.
Yeah.
This one, where you have many chances to win, and it slips through your hands, is much more disappointing. But on another level, you also know that actually you were playing very well, and on another day you could have got the rub of the green and actually won that match and gone on to do what Nava has done and qualify. And I think it's very important that the player focuses on the level that they put on the court for 80% of the match. For 80% of the match, Liam was playing very, very good tennis. But for a couple of games where he got a little nervous or lost a bit of concentration, it was a very good match. And so I'm going to be spending a lot of time speaking to Liam about tennis is all about the level, and if you can bring the level to the court over and over again, you win more of these matches than you lose them.
Yeah. What's the schedule right now for Liam over the next, well, all the way up to Wimbledon, basically?
Well, whilst it's incredibly disappointing, and I was starting, feel quite good about once he won his first round, and the level that he was putting on early in that match, that if he got through that the French could have been quite exciting. But now that it's done, the one positive is he gets a little more time to prepare on the grass. So next week he'll be practicing all week on the grass, and we'll play Surbiton.
Cool. So that's a challenger which will start in about 10 days from now in South London.
That's right.
I think it'll be a pretty stellar lineup because I'm sure
it always is.
Yeah. You'll have Andy Murray, I think, is probably going to play there.
Probably,
We'll probably have maybe one or two other Brits, particularly if they go out super early in Paris, to keep an eye out for. So that'll be exciting. I've actually got a challenger next week in Bonn on clay, which is 1 week too early in a way because it's the first week of the French Open. So the people that have been tearing it up in Paris will stay there. The ones that have gone out will be, a lot of them, especially the Brits anyway, will be thinking about switching to the clay. And then it's the rest that'll be in Bonn. Yeah, exactly. So that's in Troisdorf. But the week after in Surbiton, Liam is due to play there. What about beyond Surbiton?
So I mean, the schedule is Surbiton, Nottingham, Queens, Eastbourne, Wimbledon.
Pretty intense, then.
So yeah, I mean, the grass rolls around, and it once you get into it, it goes very, very quickly, actually. And then probably Newport after Wimbledon as well, which is another grass court tournament in America.
Yes, I know. Yeah, I know that one. Is that a 250?
That's 250, correct? Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then will he come back to Europe before going back out to North?
No, then he'll take a week off in the States, and he'll take a few days off, and then just get ready for the hard court season in the States. So
Okay.
not sure. I mean, a lot depends on how the grass court season goes as to the schedule in the States, because it'll be a mixture of challenges and tour events. But if he really lights it up on the grass, then of course it'll just be tour events in the States.
Yeah, right. Which will be cool. And fingers crossed. What would be a cut for the U.S. Open qualifying, or is that pretty comfortable? Or
Oh, US Open qualifying is very comfortable. No, I mean the goal is to try and make US Open main draw.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
really? Okay. So what would his ranking have to be for that?
Uh,
More or less.
More or
It
less
can vary, I
100.
know.
I'd say 108 might do it.
Okay.
108 probably.
And his current ranking is about 120 something.
I'm not sure. I think it's about 130.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'll be touch and go. Of course, if he has a Wimbledon like he had last year, I would imagine he would make the main draw comfortably
Yes.
in New York.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, we can go on about that, and we have touched on it before. Listen, I want to end, David, on a sort of a broader tennis point. I know we touched on approaches to matches, and we also touched on it even in today's show of how you deal with certain mental challenges. And I think probably to the casual observer like myself, we do wonder what is it like walking out on the hallowed turf at Wimbledon, for example, whether you're on centre court or elsewhere, whether you're ranked 800 or two or one, it's all can be very new and can be very anxious, but also you could be at the end of your career and have a different kind of pressure. And I think many of us, just casual observers, know what we're like on the day of our driving test. And I remember myself, my foot is like this on the clutch pedal, and you sort of just want it all to be over and done with. But of course, as a tennis player, you sort of have this mixture of, or a sports star in general. You don't want it over and done with because you're supposed to enjoy this driving test. You're not necessarily supposed to enjoy. We all
Yeah.
understand that, but this is what we're here for. What do you do as a coach? I mean, you've coached dozens of players over dozens of big matches, over all the biggest tournaments in the world. What do you sense stuff on the day of the first round at a major, or second or third round against a Boris Becker or whoever you're coming up against? Do you sort of go, I think I know how my guy is feeling. I think I know what to do. And yeah, just talk us through that.
Yeah. I think first round is very different from the rest of the tournament. First round, everybody is very apprehensive. It's difficult, but you do get a sense that if the player is in a really good place, that as long as they put their game on the court, they're going to play a good match, and if they play a good match, they've got a good chance of winning, and that's a nice place to be. Um, there are times when you're going into a first round where the player's either a little undercooked or the form has not leading up into majors not being good, and then you're much more nervous about the unknown quantity of what the player is going to put out on the court, and you've got to try to get a sense for where the player is mentally themselves, and hopefully they'll be honest enough with you to tell you about the insecurities that they're
Mm-hmm.
feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do that, then you can deal with it before they walk on the court. It's and then every now and again you just get a sense where it's just not going to happen, and
Mm.
that's a really rough place for you to be
Mm-hmm.
in as a coach, to try somehow turn the mindset around, somehow to get them unstuck in a place where they're pretty negative about their game and negative about their chances. And if you can turn those situations around, you're really earning your money, because and in those situations, I try to think outside the box and do things that are a little different. one year I had a player that was very stuck in a bad place, and just made him go and walk in the wilds uh, uh, for a couple of hours
Mhm.
without a phone, and just said, "Go walking, be with nature, and come back and see how you feel."
Mhm.
And that somehow broke the spell, and he performed well. I've had another situation where a player was playing, a very very big player on a big court. I mean, first time on a huge court, very very nervous,
Mhm.
and I took her around the court early in the morning before anybody got there, just to get
Mhm.
a feel for the stadium.
Mhm.
I sat her down, on the side of the court there, and talked to her about what she's achieved to get there, and the fact that
Mhm.
she's earned the right to be there. And then the other perspective I gave her is, I said, you do realize that what you're going to experience today is something that, you can't buy. Billionaires could want this experience and they can't have it.
Mhm.
It's something you have to earn.
Mhm.
You've earned it. You, you know, you are going to experience something that, every tennis player who doesn't ever get to experience this will have dreamed about, and you will have dreamed about it, and and you know millions of others would give anything to experience this. So
Mhm.
whatever happens, at least your tennis has gotten good enough to have this experience.
Yeah.
And if you think further, though, if you're thinking like this is going to be your only experience of this, then I think that's also not the place to be, because you want to feel in your head that this is the first of many. Because if you're feeling like it's the only time you're going to experience this, then you're basically saying that today is the pinnacle of my career and it's all downhill from here. Or you're going to say, today is the pinnacle of my career so far,
Mhm.
beginning of a lot more.
Exactly. I mean, by the way, often if today is the pinnacle of your career, it could also mean tomorrow or the next day is the pinnacle of your career. If you're in the third round of Wimbledon, for example, and that's the
Yeah.
furthest you've ever been. What I've just written down is a couple of words, or three or four words regarding some of the things you've just said. I was really interested in the honesty and the frankness that a player maybe needs to have of going, I am very nervous. Even just saying the words. Again, coming back to my driving test, I think I tried to suppress, and it didn't make it any better.
No.
It was the second test when I just said, "Yeah, I am anxious. I want to pass, and I want to get this over and done with." And I think it helped me relax a bit. And I think that perhaps as well, David, is there also an element of going, "This is normal to be nervous." That actually sometimes we don't think it's normal to be, to be like this, but actually, most it's abnormal to be like Novak Djokovic, if you like. Even
Wrong.
Raf. Go on,
Wrong.
tell me. Tell me.
Novak will get just as nervous.
Okay.
This is the thing is, the best players in the world, their confidence comes from not the fact that they're not going to be nervous. Their confidence comes from the fact that they know that I've been nervous many, many times like this, and I know
Mhm.
exactly how to deal with it.
Very
And
good.
because I know how to deal with it, I know I will be able to put a good level out there no matter how nervous I am.
Yeah.
And
I
that is the place where you're
yeah.
trying to get players to, where they accept the nerves, but they're so confident that however they're feeling out there, they will still be able to put a level out there that really performs well, uh, and despite the nerves. And that's
Yeah.
where the best in the world have gotten, is that it doesn't matter how nervous they are, they know how to handle it, and they will still put a very good level out there. So they're not afraid of the nerves. In fact, I think it was Matthew Pinsent, the rower, who said that, you know, I started to look at nerves like part of the furniture. If I didn't have them, I would have really worried.
Yeah. So it's a case of embracing them, I guess, and accepting them. or just no. I've been nervous before, and I've won tennis matches whilst being nervous. It's okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the opponent is not sitting there unnervous.
Right. That reminder. Yeah.
They're very nervous too. So
Yeah.
it's you're going out there to see who handles the nerves the best,
Yeah.
and whoever handles the nerves the best is probably going to come out on top because the standards are very 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 close. Um, Everybody has the odd match where they just can't shake the nerves because normally the nerves are really there. Warm up, it gets a little better. After the first 2 or 3 games, players settle down and then they just play and the nerves go. And then they only come back in the in the crucial moments. 4 or 30, 40. You're going to be a little tight, but in between they get on just play. I think where you get the amazing matches is when players go beyond nerves and they just fighting and playing, both of them in the zone. And no matter how, tight the match is, they're so tuned in that they just both play their best tennis. And we've
Mm.
seen some of the classic matches where the tennis under pressure gets better and better because they're
Mhm.
so keyed in and the desire is so high and the adrenaline's pumping and all these things in the right way. And these are just phenomenal contests because it actually then just comes down to the artistry of both players. And I do think when it gets to that place and that sort of flow, it is like art. It is like a dance between two players, and the unforced error count is very low. And I think people in the stadium can feel that
Yeah.
when a team is flowing, when players are flowing, and that is what we all aspire to in our lives, to have those periods where everything's just flowing amazingly well. And it's just awesome to watch.
There were a few matches that have raced through my head in the last 5 minutes. I'm thinking third set between Rafa and Novak at the French Open. You talk about being in the zone and just phenomenal levels, just getting higher and higher. Of course, Rafa and Roger at the 2008 Wimbledon final. But even that final was laced with nerves from both players at various points, particularly Rafa, who was trying to win his first Wimbledon, I think. And there was something else as well from which is going to augment what you were saying about, having been there and been anxious before and got over the line. I spoke to Arina Sabalenka in a press conference a few weeks ago, and I said, oh, there was a few coincidences today between the Madrid final and the final that she'd had in Australia. And I said, by the way, it was 2 hours, 27 minutes in both or something like that. And I said, and by the way, 4 championship points. Does that sound familiar to you? And she laughed and she said, yeah. And I said, were you thinking about the Australian Open final in that last game in Madrid against Iga? And she said, funny enough, yeah, I was. I was thinking, I think she was 30-40 down in that game as well. And she obviously was facing break points as well, I think, against Sabalenka. And she just said it all came back to me. It's like, I've been here before. It's okay. If I can win Australia 4 championship points, facing break points, trying to serve it out, I'm sure I can win Madrid, and that kind of thing of you, as you saying, it's okay, it's all right. I've been here before, and I'm sure I'll be here again, and I think that certainly helps. There was one other match that raced through my head, actually, probably over the last half an hour, but at various points. I think it was when you said, there's just sometimes when it's just, it's just so the anxiety is just too much, and it's just, and the match I'm thinking of was, go on.
Are you going to pick Djokovic Medvedev US Open final?
No, but I think that's a good candidate because you're right. And that's probably when you were thinking of that 10 minutes ago when you went, wait, on Novak being calm and cool and collected. Because you're right. He's punching his leg at one point in that second set because he just can't get his legs moving. And I think that's probably quite interesting. The match I was going to mention, David, Jana Novotná, Steffi Graf with that double breakup.
Yes,
It's
yes,
I
yeah,
I cannot watch the 5 or 10-minute documentaries and clips. I haven't found the full match, but I cannot watch the 5 or 10-minute clips of her career, if you like, without, welling up, because that that loss that she had to Steffi Graf, a double breakup 40-30, she double faults. David, do you ever even look at the manner of the fault when it's like 2 meters out? That's like there's I don't know. That's how it is for me as a fan. And she goes about 2 meters out on one of her serves. I'm thinking, oh dear.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you do sometimes look at the manner, but if you're actually there live, you can feel it. You can feel the tension. You can feel that this is something's going wrong right now, and a, a that's a horrible feeling if it's your player. It's a pretty good feeling if it's the opponent that you suddenly see, you know,
And Steffi felt it, I'm sure.
oh,
She
100%,
and she
100%.
gets better. It helps her, I
Oh,
mean, yeah,
yeah,
and
I
that's
mean,
that's the vicious.
you suddenly feel them go. I think another match that comes to mind is Agassi Todd Martin.
Okay,
Um, he was 2 sets to love, 4-1 down.
this is Agassi, is it? Was 4-1 down, 2 sets to love
Yeah,
down.
2 sets to love, 4-1
I mean,
down.
I'm guessing just because of the magnitude of the two players. I don't know the match you're talking about, but
It
as
was
soon
at
as
Wimbledon.
okay, and I'm guessing Todd Martin goes on to lose, does he?
Yeah, and Agassi sat on the change. I actually thought and said, you know, uh, this guy's blown a 5-1 lead in a final. Sorry, in
Mm,
a semi-final before
mm,
against Malabai Washington in the fifth
mm-hmm.
set.
Okay. Was that the year him and Stich probably contested the final? Was it him and Stich? I
No,
think.
no, the final then was
Oh, Richard Krajicek.
Krajicek beat
Yeah. Yeah.
won that one, and Agassi said he actually thought on the changeover, you know, just hang in. Let's see if I can be here for another half an hour and see
Mm,
what it's like then.
mm-hmm.
And Todd Martin started to wobble, and you could feel the whole momentum switch happen.
Mm,
So so it's happened to really world class players. Uh,
mm-hmm.
you, you know, uh, there's very I don't there's probably not a player on the planet. There isn't a player on the planet who's not experienced a meltdown, uh, either benefiting from it or creating the opportunity for the other player. But that's why sport, no matter how much data we get, no matter how much sports science, no matter how much happens, the reason why people are always going to love sport is the human element that you cannot take out. And that human element is where all the drama lives. And it's it's very frustrating sometimes as a coach and obviously for a player, but equally you have to be respectful of it because that is what makes sport wonderful. Otherwise, if the best players always perform to their best, they they would win all the time, and
Yeah.
it wouldn't be interesting. The idea that there can be an upset is what makes sport fantastic. And I mean, the other meltdown that you bring to mind is a totally different sport. Greg Norman 6 shots up on Nick
I
Faldo.
remember that. Would that be? I think that was probably 96 because I was doing
Yeah,
my GCSEs on Nick Faldo. Yeah.
that was uh, that was painful to watch. I mean, every now and again there's a meltdown that is actually hard to watch
Yeah.
because we it's almost I haven't experienced, but I'd say it almost is teetering on the edge of a nervous breakdown.
Yeah, the thing is though, when you see a meltdown or unfortunately the loss of nerve or momentum like Todd Martin had, um, in a way it's kind of worse because at least Greg Norman won a few majors, and
Yeah, yeah,
and I'm just trying to think of, I mean that's the thing. Back to the beauty of that story of Jana Novotná. Thank goodness
yeah.
she
She
did
won
get
one.
over the line 5 years later. because she also lost another Wimbledon final. But
Yeah.
that I can't think of a more famous example in tennis anyway of a starker example, I should say, than that of just and you can, I think it's because we can empathize as well. So, I mean, we've never been in a Wimbledon final, but we all imagine what it would be like, and we can 98% of the people in the crowd are sort of feeling it, as you say, and probably 100%
Yeah.
actually. And yeah, it's just I mean, the other golfing example, there was a French guy who sort of your mind starts doing unusual thing. The French guy who dived into the water at the
Yes.
Open.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and
Lefebvre or something. Okay. Yeah, I remember that.
I can't remember his name right now, but yeah,
Uh, um,
that would have been
very, very
99, I
good
think.
golfer who, when Tom Watson was leading the Open at 57 years of age, and chasing him was, he's finished in the top 3, 5 so many times. Great British golfer from Nottingham. I can't. Woosnan keeps coming into my head, but it's not Woosnan. It's
Okay.
and he was so intent on what Watson was doing, he didn't really focus on his own golf, and missed the opportunity, and somebody else won it. And Montgomery, the same thing. Colin Montgomery at the U.S. Open was so worried about Mickelson in the chasing behind that somebody in the clubhouse won it, because both him and Mickelson melted down.
I'm just wondering, did Mickelson ever? I'm not a huge golf fan, but I remember that Greg
He's won
Norman example. Did
majors.
Mickelson win a major?
Oh, he's won 6, but
Oh, okay. I remember him trying to get over the.
Montgomery never won one.
Yeah, I know Montgomery. I mean, actually, again, we talk about classic examples. He's probably the
Yeah.
one in, and yet, David, and maybe this brings us back to tennis to some extent. We would see Montgomery in a team environment thrive under that kind of pressure, and that's really interesting. How we, I mean, we need a bit more. What's the word? A few more examples, but we see someone like Belinda Bencic doing very well for Switzerland, and then suddenly like this, and maybe certain players in a team environment are very cool with carrying the team and helping the team. And David, something I sometimes think about. And I know. Again, I'm a human being. I'm not a professional tennis player, and unfortunately, I think at 43, probably have missed that boat. Is sometimes I try to just think a bit positive, rather than. I know this sounds a bit corny, but rather than, oh no, what happens if I miss? I'm thinking about pool, by the way, or snooker now. What happens if I miss this shot? Sometimes I just try to think about, what's the thinking about if I get it in, if I win this point, if I get this. And I know it's a very subtle difference and easier said than done, but sometimes I do think to myself, this will be pretty cool if I get this pretty tricky shot in.
What I sometimes say to players is, a point is a 50-50. Okay.
Yeah.
The person serving, okay, has the advantage only until you've hit a good return. But if you hit a good return, then the point is 50-50. Why not give both sides of or match is 50-50? Why feel like the negative result has a bigger chance than the positive result? Literally give the positive result the same respect as you do a negative result. That, the match is 50-50. So be positive that, why can't the positive side happen? The negative side can happen and the positive side can happen. So at worst, be 50% positive about it, because don't be 80% negative and 20% positive.
David, I don't know if there's much to be positive about on the screen right now. Can you see the screen I'm sharing of John Daly?
Yes.
Because Ghosty in the chat said the only golfer that matters is John Daly. Well, we've already touched on Liam's outfit. Well, fortunately, we're heading into Wimbledon, where he certainly won't be wearing the loud outfit, David. I couldn't help but think about that throughout the last few days. Well, I guess he's getting it all over and done with now. By the way, in terms of what he can wear at at Queens, etc., and Surbiton, it's anything goes as well, is it? Or
Yes,
is there?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. ATP is anything goes. So yeah, Bidu Badu are certainly getting their PR. I'm sure we're going to see some others in the main draw wearing it,
Okay,
or
good
a
to know.
combination of it, and I'm sure
Keep
it'll
an eye out.
bring a few smiles to people's faces, and and maybe a little bit of oh my goodness.
David, it's the first Friday evening, or even maybe the first evening I can remember in a while where we've had some nice weather here in Western Germany. So we'll let you as well hopefully enjoy if there's some nice weather where
Yeah,
you are, David, in the
yes,
UK.
thank
Yep,
goodness.
it's 20 past 7 where you are, 20 past 8 in the evening. Many of our US friends will be just sort of munching into their lunch, but you and I'm going to let you get. Basically, this is me saying
Goodbye.
goodbye, and we've had a few sort of darker moments during this show, but one thing that certainly wasn't dark was both John Daly's and Liam's outfit in Paris.
Yeah,
But listen, those things will be in the vault, and we'll speak to you soon, David. Thanks for dropping by the way, because obviously it's
brilliant.
been a sort of a tough end to this week in terms of results, at least.
Yeah. Well, we look forward to the grass, and hopefully that turns out as even better than last year.
Yes, fingers crossed for the grass court season. Everyone else, thanks for stopping by. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.